Okay, I'm going to start with Amajit. Amajit, morena.
Morena, ko Taradua te monga, ko Waikanai te awa, e tipu ake aho I Gateshead, England, ko Wayne Maxwell Takutane no Wairarapa ai, ko Flynn Rua, ko Tara aku tamariki, ko Amajit Maxwell aho, tina koutou, tina tātou katoa. So I hail from overseas, which many of you already know, but obviously for our guests to know who I am and where I come from. I have Tara and Flynn as my twins, and my husband born and bred Masterton. But I always say to people, I came here on my general skills and then met him. So, but yes, and I work with obviously the team Jazz, Amel, and Carol, and then this beautiful network to share our mahi. So thank you. I'm looking forward to this session, and I am probably a little amber today, bordering on green, but a little amber.
Ngā mihi. Thanks, Amajit. Amelia, good morning.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Ko Amelia Toka Ingawa. I am based in Wellington and the change facilitator and program lead for Healthcare Home at Tokerau Campus Health. Today I am feeling green because I got up and took the dog for a walk.
Thanks, Amelia. Bronwyn from Te Tā Tokerau. We've got quite a few Te Tā Tokerau family here. Morena.
Morena, Mel. Hi, great to see you. Ko Bronwyn Toko Ingoa. I'm the multi-site medical centre manager for the Doctors Whangarei, and that's covering the Doctors Tikiponga, the Doctors Kamo, and the Doctors Tui.
Thanks, Bronwyn. And how are you feeling?
Oh, sorry. I'm on green today, actually.
Yay. That's
Might have been a different
fantastic.
question if you'd asked me yesterday, but today I'm feeling good.
Anybody who's coming from general practice who's feeling green is doing really well.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bronwyn.
Thank you.
Nice to see you here. Morena Jazz.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Ko inia te whakapaparangi mai engari, ko East London te whenua tapu, ko te whanganui a tara te kainga, ke te awa kairangi ki tai au e noho ana. He kai whakahaere kaupapa o Collaborative Aotearoa, ko Jazz Grual o tēnā tātou katoa, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora everyone, I'm Jazz Grual and I'm part of the collab team, and I support the whole program around collective action with communities. I hail from East London. I was born and grew up there and moved to New Zealand 20 years ago with one baby and have now ended up with 3. And they're all grown up. They're teenagers now. So I actually have, you may hear the teenagers waking up shortly with it being school holidays. And so that's me. And I'm probably, I think I'm a green today, Mel. Yesterday I was a red. I had a migraine yesterday. But yeah, today I'm definitely a green. And it's such a pleasure to see you, all your lovely faces on the screen as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Jazz. Thank you. Kia ora, Julie.
Oh, kia ora koutou. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Awesome. Ko Julie Olsen taku ingoa. So I'm Provider Networks Manager at Health Hawke's Bay. Cheryl Parkin is not able to attend today, so she's asked me to join the meeting. But lovely to see you all and to meet you all. Cool. Thank you. Oh, and I'm feeling pretty greenish, I'd say.
That's great. A room full of green people. Awesome. Thanks, Julie.
Cheers.
Korotangi, I'm going to skip you just for the moment and let you introduce yourself when Carol does that just before your speech. So I'm just kind of going down the list here. Lovey, Morena.
A morena koutou katoa, a tēnei te mihi atu ki a koutou e te whānau a nau mai hoki mai. A mihi ana ki a koe Carol mō tō karaki a whakatuwhera a kei te mihi, a kei te mihi, a kei te mihi. Tēnei te mihi atu ki a korua i te rangatira, Amajit rawa ko Mel, a kei te mihi, a kei te mihi, a kei te mihi. Rawa, tēnei te mihi atu ki a koe e hoa e korotangi nau mai hoki mai I tēnei hui. Ko waiau, ko tauranga te moana, ko tauranga te whenua, ko piri rākau rawa, ko tamapa haere tuku tūranga waiwai. Ko Lavi Rātima Rapson tuku ingoa, me mahi ana ahau I a Pegasus Health. Anō reira, a komatu aku kōrero I tēnei ata. Good morning, everyone. Great to see you all online. And so I work at Pegasus Health here in Otautahi in Christchurch. Connections all around the place. And so when I see people in the, you know, it's great to make those connections. And so, yeah, so just looking forward to today. And I'm a green. So, kia ora. Thanks, Mel.
Kia ora, lovely. Fantastic to hear. Is it Nai or Ni? I should know, right?
Kia ora, it's Ni.
Thank you, Ni.
Yeah,
welcome.
That's fine. I respond to both. Tēnā koutou, everyone. I'm Ni Brunenberg. I'm based in Wellington in the Two Water Healthcare Home team as the change facilitator here at with the localities of Wairarapa, Pariroa and North Wellington. Good to meet you all. I'm feeling green today. Yeah, finally got my car in for a warrant. So yeah, pretty happy about that.
Nice. Thanks, Ni. Patria Morena.
Morena, ko Patria Tokuingoa. I'm Patria and I am down in Dunedin at the Well South office and I am a change facilitator with the Healthcare Home team. And today I think I'm green. It is raining, but I'm in a pretty good mood.
That's great to hear. Rebecca Morena.
Kia ora koutou te whānau, ko Rebecca taku ingoa, ki haurua mātua ki te tai ararere ahau I mahi ana. So I'm Rebecca, I'm based at Nelson Bay's Primary Health and practice relationship in the practice relationship team and a healthcare home lead, and I would consider myself green because a coffee just slid in from my left, which is great. Fantastic, thank you.
Nice training of your teammates there. Thank you. And last but not least, Zoe.
Morena. Tēnā koutou ko Zoe tuku ingoa. No Ingarani me swanage mawana oku te puna. Ke te noho au ki Kiriroa. Kia ora. So I'm Zoe. I'm based here in cloudy Hamilton today. I work with Pinnacle Midlands Health Network as a practice development facilitator. So working with healthcare home practices and non-healthcare home practices. So nice to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Zoe. Do we take it you're green by the colour of your jumper?
Well, I'll be honest, I'm a bit between green and orange today. So
yes.
this is
yeah.
yeah.
They are complementary colours.
Visual display. It's all about the visual display.
That's right. Thank you, everyone. Really wonderful to see you all. And I'm just going to go back to our slides. So I'm going to hand over.
Mel, I think we've got Helen as well.
Oh, we missed somebody again. Thank you to my teammates. One moment. Helen, my apologies. Morena.
Kia ora koutou. I did come in late, so that's probably why you missed me, Mel. Apologies for that. I'm Helen. I work in the healthcare home team currently and work for Pinnacle. I'm not sure about the green because I came in late. I'm not sure the kōrero around
how are you
green.
feeling? Amber, green or red?
Oh. I'll park that at the moment. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Great to have everybody here. I'm going to move us back into the slides and then let Carol introduce our next speaker. And I'll run the slides, Carol. I'll just let you take over the sort of audio.
There we go, I'm unmuted. Okay, it's my absolute privilege today to introduce our guest speaker, who's Korotangi Kapa-Kingi, and he is a very well-respected member of our Te Tai Tokerau, and him and his whānau are very influential in the north. So we're very privileged to have him speak with us today, particularly on such short notice. So Ngā mihi, really appreciate you coming in and rearranging your time and your day for us. So he works for Te Whati Ora and also works in post-vention suicide, which is, and I know that in my brief kōrero with you yesterday, you're very stretched with, you go from Te Hana to Te Kau, and the interesting thing that I realised is that I've come from general practice and didn't realise that we could refer directly to you. So I know mahi tahi do, and so it's good. I'm so grateful to know that this kaupapa exists in the north. Actually, it's a nationwide kaupapa. So yes, thank you again for coming and speaking with us today. I'm really looking forward to it, and kia ora.
A tēnā tātou, e tikana me mihi kauana ki te kaikaraki o tō tātou nei hui, i te atanei. Nau anō i whakatata mai te hunga raua ki a tātou nei kōrero, anō reira tēnā koe. O te ranga mihi ko mihia, a ko whāriki hia, kia tautu mai a hau roto i tēnei kōrero, o tira tēnā tātou katoa. I ahu mai au i a Waikato. And I moi au tētahi kapa no te kāo. I usually have my letters KKK, and that doesn't go over too well with many people. So you'll just have the KK this morning. I met a lovely Te Aupōuri woman in Waikato when we were studying, and then we had 3 babies all at once. Because my wife is quite clever like that, she's quite organised. So triplet boys, they're 26 years of age now, and our daughter, Tōrere Nui Arua, she was born 3 years later, and that's the math. Great to have 4 boys all at once. I couldn't practice on the first one as you do as a parent. You have the first child and then you kind of practice on that one, and the rest kind of get forgotten to the youngest one and they become the golden child. And so I'm a golden child, by the way. I don't know if you already got that, but I'm the golden child within the whānau. And my family, we are 6 siblings, but my whānau were often 10 to 12 within our family homestead. And that's just because we can. Basically, that's a classic Māori environment where you had your first cousins growing up as your sisters and brothers. Why am I starting there? Because that influences my practice. That's the fundamental, te orokohanga o taku mahi. You learn to figure out who was the kingpin and who you could go to when you wanted something from mum and dad. And they became your advocates. So as the youngest in the whānau, you've got to figure out how to utilise these skills, you see. And in the spaces that I work in, you figure out quite quickly within a room after the death of sudden death, specifically suicide, what skill sets exist within the sitting room at that very moment, or maybe within the wharenui at that very moment, or maybe just sitting in the car outside of a what we would call Newberries up here, a funeral home, and trying to understand what are the connections here. So that's the way I'm going to speak into my practice. It's very much from a practitioner's point of view. My background comes from teaching, so 4 years in primary sector and then 15 years within tertiary. And it helped me understand people. And so stepping into this role was just another extension of understanding what skill sets you have in the space and how to best utilize those skill sets to kia tutuki pai te kaupapa, to achieve ultimately what is the best thing, the best outcome for the whānau at that moment. Okay, so Korotangi is my name, from Waikato, Tainui Waka. My father is a cowboy, he comes from the East Coast. Lovey knows that. All of those guys along the East Coast, they're all cowboys. And my mother went to Sunday school and was a teacher at Sunday school. So they were polar opposites, you know. And what does that mean? It means that it takes all different types of skill sets to get things done. And I understand that. So I'm the cowboy, and my boss, she's the earth. And she can hear me. She's a great boss, by the way. Did I just say that, whānau? Anyway, and she lets me do what I need to do in these spaces, and then we have clinical support. So I'm not the one-stop shop. I'm the guy that engages with whānau, and I've learned to do that because tangihanga, death, and life is a huge exponent of te reo me ona tikanga and our practices as Māori. So from a holistic point of view, what does that look like? It looks like me. And what does that look like engaging with whānau? The whānau tell us what they want. The whānau tell us what we want. So that's where we work from. So to give you an understanding of my role, I first have to start with, how do we get to name our role? And when you name something, then you have the intention. And when you have the intention, then you understand what your practice is. So, ki roto i te ao Māori, post-vention suicide coordinator, I don't even want that role. Who wants to speak to me? You know what I mean? It's already tarnished, or it already has perceptions about what that looks like. So I enter into the space with a very Māori thinking approach. So what did whānau want? Working 4 years with whānau, we understood what whānau wanted. They wanted somebody just to stand off the side of them and who they could just tap or just look at them, give the Māori salute. And we knew what we wanted to do. So our job was to be quiet. And when asked, we said something. And if we didn't know, we got them there. And that's what our role is. So in a Māori context, we all understand tangihanga. We may have all been onto a marae through a pōwhiri process. When one is weighted, and this is, I'm going into a little, you can hear the teacher in me. When one is weighted with the death of your father, your son, your daughter, your family member, and they didn't die by a car accident or by cancer, they decided to take their life. Now that's a whole different type of mate, you know, and whakamā comes with that. Pauritanga comes with that. So if we just take into the context of being weighted on one's shoulders when walking onto the marae, your back is literally bent over. You're looking at the ground, you're looking at your feet, and you're tilted forward. Now, for our practice as a practitioner, our job is to, in time, support the whānau to straighten their vertebrae. And fundamentally in Māoridom, that means tai tuara, to provide support, tai tuara. So now I told you what the word means, that informs you to my practice now. You know, post-vention coordinator lead, blah, 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 tai tuara, there we go. And so from understanding what our practice is and our role, and now our responsibility, that's my job description. I don't need to refer to it every 5 weeks just to get a holiday. I know what my role is now. And so, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. I've been a Māori all my life. I've been to Trimillion, pōwhiri. I've been to many a death and many a birth. You know, so from the holistic being of orokohanga, the creation of the world, to this exact moment, I have an understanding of what my tupuna left behind me, which is a practice model, which has been honed over centuries. And now we live within a space where tangihanga is no longer what it used to be, but we're informed by the practice model pre-colonization. And we bring that into today, post-colonization, at this very moment. And that's very important for me to distinguish pre-colonization practice of tangihanga and post-colonization. And here's just the point. 3 days of a tangihanga, and then burying your whānau 6 feet deep. That was all 1912. 1912. That might feel like ages ago for you, but literally my grandmother was alive in 1912. So that wasn't ages for me. And growing up on her heels gives me an extension and an insight as a practitioner, what that looked like. So kapai, that's my little spiel for that first part. So how does that inform me? That informs me how I connect and network. Every morning, I am welcomed by a police Poll 47 report on my laptop. And that tells me who decided to threaten, attempt, or die by suicide last night. And so we get that every morning. And of course, there's mornings when I don't get that. So I know I'm no longer green, amber, or red. I'm chocolate. Look into the chocolate drawer, pick it out, great. That's a good day. That's a great start. Okay, how can I still contribute with other whānau that I've been engaging with? And who keeps in touch with us? The HIPs, health improvement practitioners. Not so much the general practitioners, but their sidekicks. Kaumātua marae. Believe it or not, social media. Our tamariki mokopuna, teenagers, early 20s, they have no limitation to what they share on social media. I'm sure many of you are aware of that. And so finding out a young man who's passed away in Otara is now returning to the Hokianga, and they're now at Wellsford Gold Station filling up their petrol. So that's at the moment. That's live. That's boots on ground information. And so what does Korotangi do? Just ring the kaumātua in Hokianga. Tēnā koe, Chief. It's you, Korotangi. Yes, sorry about that. Yeah. How's your day, Korotangi? Is it about another dead person? This is all in Te Reo Māori. I'm just translating for you. It sounds better in Te Reo Māori, but bueno. Is there another dead person coming? Yes, that's correct. What is their whānau name? And from committing to that whakapapa connect, we then start the responsibility of manaaki tangata from the mana whenua perspective. And so I become a conduit between a car that's driven from Otara, that's filling up gas in Wellsford, that's returning back to the Hokianga. And if that's all my job is for that whānau, that's all that is. Apai? I'm trying to give you an extent of how I do my engagement. Right to a serious attempt, standing at the ICU with the mother, and she's asking me, how do I plan the tangihanga because we're going to turn the machine off. So, koina tāpu mai. That's my role and responsibility to our whānau. So yeah, I don't know where else to go from here. I think I may have given you like a classic Korotangi Wikipedia version of what my role is. I don't know, Carol, if there's questions, if this is a Q&A kind of thing. I'm speaking from what does that mean? It means there's centuries of refining what death looks like and how it's experienced in the moment and after the moment. Pre-colonization, tangihanga went 3 days and you had to take sick leave on the 4th day and then return back to work on the 5th day. Tangihanga for our people lasted, if not weeks, months. And then there are components of survival for the whānau through practices that we know of as kawe mate or hari mate, where the whānau, the immediate whānau or the bereaved are supported for several weeks, if not several months. And then we have what I know as practitioners in these spaces that I've picked up, circles of vulnerability. Now, if I was to look at that as a Māori practitioner, I say, oh, first circle, whānau pani. Second circle, whare mate. Third circle, kiri mate. What does kirimate look like? Kirimate looks like the school principal. It looks like the coach for basketball. It looks like the person at the dairy. And in the hokianga, that person knows everybody. So that's the type of communities that we live on. That's the approach that I'm allowed to do because I've got a great, fantastic manager. And I get to have chocolates every now and then because we don't get reports every day. So that's how I engage. That's the role. And just a little bit of an added approach. I'm not a clinician and I know my role. I stay in my lane. And when we need clinicians, I just go to my desk next to me. I need you. And that's how it is. It's a very whānau ora response. I don't roll in to say, you're broken, I'm going to fix you. I ask if I can engage. And if they let me in, I just stand and wait. And that's a very classic Māori approach. You know, I don't tell them, this is how I'm going to manaki you. That's alien. You know, observation tells me how I can provide some supports. And when they ask me, can you help me? I don't know what's happening. Because of your observation, you can provide some insights. Unfortunately, we get too many mahi, too much death, and I've become pretty refined in some of these places. Unfortunately, fortunately. Yeah, okay. That, Amelia, that look is pretty intense. I don't know whether you're saying hello or anything like that, so I'm kind of getting nervous. Jazz, she talks with her body, and I'm really appreciating that. And Lovey's got that. Yes, Korotangi. So I'm really trying to get the feel of everybody here in this space. I know it's just cameras, but I do see you nodding in the places where I want you to nod, if that makes sense. I understand that you get that death is just one part of the journey for the whānau. And I appreciate you just listening to Korotangi for the last 20 minutes. So tēnā tātou, Mel, Carol.
Korotangi, thank you so much. I'm going to let Carol follow and then we'll open up to questions.
Kia ora, Korotangi. We could sit and listen to you all day. I'm just in awe and feel like I could learn so much. You did speak to me about tikanga, how you also used the same approach with Pākehā. Did you just want to just touch on that for me?
Okay. Tēnā koe, Carol. When I did drop that line on you, Carol, I being a Māori, you become a chameleon. And I learned that from my mother. My mother was one particular person at home. And then when we went out to pay the bills for farmers, forlongs, the bank, mother left her kete at home and picked up a purse. And when we hopped out of the car, I had already had my hair swept to the side. My mother had already washed my neck and already so she was ensuring that when we stepped out of the car, that people would look upon us and see us as good Māori. Now, I'm talking about my mother who lived in Tuakau, who was told you can only sit at the movies on the top, on that, I've forgotten the thing that looks down. That's my mummy. My dad was told to go around the shop to pick up his orders. You know, so, not my great-grandparents, but my mum and my dad. When I said I'm the youngest of 6, my brother's 23 years older than I, and I'm the youngest. So when I popped out, mum and dad were kind of like, chill. Do what you want to do, son. But when my brother was born, of course, he was the first. And so he had a different experience of our parents. Why did I start there? Because I'm very good of changing my tone, my language, understanding who I'm speaking to. So when I'm ringing a 71-year-old mother who lives in Paparoa, I'm just making this up, whānau, you know, and her daughter passed away from suicide 11 years ago, and I'm speaking to her, I'm ensuring that she's not going to try and figure out is this a Māori guy speaking to me? And how much information? Because we know she's 71, my mother's 93 now. I would understand within those 20 years, she would understand the relationship between Māori of her generation and what Korotangi looks like today. And so I don't want to take her back to Māori of that generation, but I want her to engage just as I'm talking about your daughter. I'm talking about how are you today? And then she tells me, you're the first one to say anything about my daughter in 11 years. Now, that happened for her naturally because I'm not providing hurdles for her to get over her own politics. And I'm talking about that, about the situation of what it was to be Māori in 1950 to what it is to be Māori today. So I'm talking about how does Korotangi engage, not about every single Māori in the world, hey Lovey, hey Rebecca, but just what it is to be Māori in this exact moment. And so I can be a chameleon. When I'm behind in my Vodafone bill, I have the Pākehā voice. Good morning. Yes, I'm sorry about that. I appreciate what you're doing for me, Janet. Janet, is it Janet? Janet, thank you, Janet. See, I can get a Vodafone reverted backwards, and they're going to put me in credit. What I'm saying is that you need a voice to engage and understand the situation. And what does that have to do with tikanga? That's our kai kōrero on our marae. That's our kai karanga on our marae. That are the people that wash the pots, fill the pots, pour the cups of tea. They're all ensuring that their role and responsibility is to that of the whānau. And that's what I'm saying about how tikanga informs me in my practice. And I probably could come up with another way of explaining it, but that's how it is for me at this very moment. Tēnā tātou. Thank you, Amelia, for the grid. Appreciate that.
Kia ora. Just wanted to know if anybody would like to ask Korotangi any questions. If anybody's got any questions that they'd like to ask him while we've got him in our place.
Lovey, you went. You go.
Oh, you go.
Kia ata pai ki te tangata. Kia ata pai ki te tangata. A tēnei te mihi atu ki a koe mō tō kōrero I tēnei ata Korotangi. Just, to again acknowledge you and your mahi, and hopefully your boss around the corner can hear you and maybe, a pay rise might be coming for you. But, I want to acknowledge the field that you work in. And I did have the privilege of working alongside your whānau when I managed the Kia Piki Te Ora contract here in Ōtautahi, and come together on a regular basis to meet with Maria Mino, and heard lots about those triplets. And so now that they've all grown up, and so what I wanted to just check in with you and maybe get, some guidance in the spaces around, yes, sometimes, it's a difficult space to talk about. And so then if it's difficult, we don't. And so we stop the conversation, or, we change the subject because that got too hard. But I liked how you talked about boots on the ground. And so it is something that I know Mel is kind of embedded in me, kind of that really getting down to the, like the nuts and bolts of it all. And part of that is the kaimahi on the front line. And so one of the roles that we play here at Pegasus is that notification to primary care. So we get notifications. I'm not sure whether it's a similar drill down as what yours is, but we get completed suicide notifications. And so we have to reach out to the practices to inform them that, if they have not already heard, or if they haven't already been contacted overnight or during that period of time. And so I wonder, because I know you talked about how we have those connections, and we ring our koro or karawa in different areas, and then, they're saying to us, oh, has there been another mate, and what's this? And So some of that we haven't actually got, you know, so just, you know, maybe some ideas around, you know, good ways of kind of, you know, because we have, when we make notifications and we make contact with maybe the practice manager who's not a clinician, there might not be a lot of support that sits there with them. We're working on that though. But yeah, I mean, I'd just be interested in what your thoughts are around kind of how we can help support both the notification and the support that sits around them.
Tēnā pēlavi mo tēnā pātai. And this is the spaces that I think are important between mate, is ensuring that those relationships with the community people are always turning over. You're always engaging with them. You're always letting them know what type of training is out there. And then you just swan by and just take a loaf, or sometimes it's gluten-free loaf today, you know what I mean? So you have to understand the conversations that people are already having, and then understanding what perceptions are out there that are myths around suicide. Like my son died by suicide, now they're all going to take their lives. You know, then everything becomes like the flu. We understand in our spaces there's contagion stuff, you know, and there are things that we can talk about then, how to support families, how to support whānau. And I think one critical component of it is maintaining relationships with the community or stakeholders. That's a term we use all the time. I always think of meat when we say stakeholders, sorry, whānau. So maintaining those relationships all the time, Lavi, all the time. So when the kaumātua, for example, says there's another mate coming, those relationships are so intimate, then they can just ring you on, as they do, 2 o'clock in the morning, just saying, to say, oh, I just saw something on television about suicide. What's your thoughts on that? And I'm like, amatua, my thoughts were my eyes closed looking at the ceiling type thing. But that's because of those relationships have been fostered in the way they do. They will not no longer talk to you about the perceived relationships they should have from the community, but their own personal views. And that's what you can work with. You understand at a marae, you have a kauhau, and the kaumātua has this responsibility of talking to the many that have come. If they haven't been trained in those spaces, words like very religious connotations too can not unfortunately support the whānau, but create very different situations for every individual in that space. So navigating relationships, Lavi, that's what I'm saying. I think those are very fundamental between mate, from the dairy owner to the person who's digging the hole, understanding who they are, what their responsibilities are outside of death by suicide, and maintaining relationships, Lavi. I think koina te mea nui kia.
Nā mihi e hoa.
Tēnā koe. Kia ora, Mel.
Jazz, were you just about to press your thing? You go first.
I was going to. Thanks, Mel. Korotangi, that was beautiful, really lovely to hear the amazing work that you're doing with whānau in your community. I have a lot of what you shared. I have experienced. I was professionally and personally. I professionally was working as a Sudi liaison a number of years ago in Auckland and parts of the lower North Island, which very much the same, going in to support whānau after losing babies suddenly and unexpectedly. So a lot of the way that you practice is how I practice. The challenge I found, and this is probably a challenge for all of us, and I'm curious to hear how you navigate it, is navigating that humanness of delivering care and kindness and supporting whānau alongside the processes. So the obligations of the coroner's input, the post-mortem, all the processes, the notifications, and all those kinds of things, and how we as I guess people that work within those sectors can make that a bit easier for people. And yeah, I'm just curious to hear from you. I mean, that was a number of years ago. I like to think that the process has moved on, but I know that it hasn't. So, for example, I know whānau that after a suicide, it can be years later that suddenly one day you just get a coroner's report in your inbox. No forewarning, it just arrives. So yeah, how can we influence and change some of those processes?
Tēnā koe, Jazz. Pai te rongo aki I tō mahi I roto I tēnei au te whakamomori. Thank you, Jazz, for giving me some insight to your practice. No, nothing's changed, Jazz. I know that's the thing you don't want to hear, but unfortunately, that it's still in those spaces. I'm one of 30, one of 8 who have postvention as their sole responsibility. Unfortunately, I think I'm one of 4 that has a full FTE. So the other postvention spaces are 0.5 or 0.4, and I know that for our whānau down there in Pegasus, they've always had to try and find something else because this is their heart mahi, but it's probably the smallest of the FTE, the 0.4 or the 0.2 for them, and what that creates, it creates a high turnover within our working space. Kaimahi. We have what we call an SPCC, which is suicide prevention and prevention coordinators, Aotearoa whānui. And when I first started 3.5 years ago in this position, there was 27 of us on the screen. I'm like, yeah, we're winning whānau. The next quarter, there was 13 of us. And I thought, oh, people must be sick. And then I started figuring out, apologies, no longer with us, gone somewhere else. So when you're trying to create a network that you're not too sure who's going to be at the next quarterly function, and I spoke about it earlier, Lovey, about maintaining those relationships. And you flick on and you're kind of like crossing your fingers, let there be more. And so Jazz, I'll start there. The Corona office, right? Like, oh my gosh, come on people, we should be better at this job, one would think. And we still don't have the amount of judges in the office that we need. We still have families waiting 5-6 years. They say, we've improved, it's now 2 years. Wow, okay, that's an improvement. This isn't a personal, this is just when I know when I'm in the space and a mother rings me 5 years later to say, I just received a letter. What does that mean? They just told me my son died by suicide. Or you get a letter that says, oh, we found out and we believe that your son did not die by suicide. For the last 6 years, they've been maintaining this whakamā, and then they get this letter and they go, but what does this letter mean now? So how do we navigate those spaces? Jazz, and I know that you would know, and maybe others, is that you try and meet it earlier than later to explain. You will receive a letter from the Corona office. It will state these things. Give them expectations about time. It might be 2 years, 3 to 4 years. And right at this moment, it's your son is acknowledged to be a suspected death by suicide. So we can't say it is. I know you cut your son down, but this letter will tell you whether the rest of the world will acknowledge it as that. What the rest of the world acknowledges and what you acknowledge it as could be 2 different things. So we prepare them. for these situations. 2 weeks later, the police turning up with the wallet, with the cap, with the shoes and the socks. You know, you have to prepare our whānau for those types of situations. And when they know sooner, then there's like a preempt. Okay, I know what's going to come now. And I know, Jazz, I think that's maybe one way of Korotangi answering that question, Jazz. Nothing's really changed, and just try and get in front of it. That's what I can say. Yeah.
Thank you.
Tēnā koe.
Armitage, I think you did.
Yes, I was just waiting to see if
the space is yours.
Yes, thank you. Ngā mihi nui, I'm in awe of the mahi that you do, Korotangi, as Lovey and others are obviously acknowledging. One question I have, I do, you know, or have done over my sort of, and I'm the golden child. I'm the youngest of 10. But over my years, probably since the time you know, I was able to do a bit of volunteering mahi, it was just always in me to be community minded of what I experienced around me. But one thing in terms of my own personal experiences, how to manage all of those emotions of what you're actually experiencing. And I say my voluntary work is nowhere near as, you know, it's not in this space that you do. So my question, I guess, is, you know, how do you keep yourself in your own hawara in amongst all of this? Because yeah, you're driven to support, but there's still an element of we're all human, and it's yeah, I see it in some of my more recent voluntary sort of work and on our wellbeing hub in schools, and what the families experience, the whānau experience. But yeah, how do you do that, and what advice do you give others?
Ka pai, that's a great papai. I started at the beginning of our conversation talking about my role, and then the point of difference between a job description and the responsibility of holding that space with our whānau that are bereaved by suicide. So I take that as I'm a practitioner of holding those spaces. And if I'm a practitioner of those spaces, what practice am I in? What timeline? And for the tangihanga protocols and procedures, we have tapu and we have noa. And these are practices that have been honed for centuries for me, and for you, and for our whānau to engage. So what do? I understand the process of there's a start and an end, and then there's a start and an end, and guess what? There's another start and another end. So understanding tapu and noa for me tells me how do I release and how do I prepare for the next engagement. Now that can happen in a ritual space where I take myself to the water, which is the beaches here in the Tokerau. You can kick a rugby ball and it's another beach, you know. So, and I stand and I do these. My personal thing is I sink the sand between my toes. I breathe. I acknowledge those who created me, and I acknowledge those who are yet to come. I breathe. I go back to my car. And I open up the fish and chip packet, and I have my gurnard, and I have my oysters, and then I spoil myself for that moment. You can probably see I've been doing a little bit of spoiling recently, and because unfortunately there's a lot of mahi that I have up here. So the spaces that I cover from is Te Hana to Te Kao, but if you lived in Wellington, that's like saying jumping on the ferry and travelling up past Foxton, past Bull, and turning up in New Plymouth. That's the space that I work in, and so having my own ritual practice, and for others that have just joined our services nationally, I say, like, you know, is it a cup of chocolate at night for you? You know, is it lighting a candle, acknowledging those who you've just worked with, and then blowing the candle out as a release? You know, whatever that practice is, sculpture it for you as the practitioner. You know, I'm not going to say for Māori way's the only way, even though I'm thinking it. I'm not gonna judge them on it. You know, what do you, sis? Do you, bro? And tweak it to what is best for you. And our tikanga Māori, we have a kaupapa when you're so weighed down. You have, if you can't do it yourself, you have a support network that, well, the support network is your kids looking at you and going, you're sounding different. You know, your partner telling you for like the 4th day in a row, sleep on the couch. You know, so you're kind of figuring those things out, you know what I mean? And your practitioners, and then your own cohort. I'm a kaiwhakairo. I'm a traditional woodcarver. And that comes with tapu and noa in our practice. And when my own cohort can see korotangi is not korotangi today, I have to remember to take heed to that. And not let my taku whakahihi, my ego step in to say, no, I got this, mate. No, I stayed up late last night. So that's one thing you need to check all the time as a practitioner, your ego. Yeah, me whakaiti, be humble in your position, in your places, and create that ritual that begins and finishes and begins again. Thank you. When I saw Maxwell, I was saying, hey, I'm related to you. Then you started talking, I'm like, that's a different accent. But anyway, then I went. Thank you for the part.
Anyone else want to say anything? Korotangi, I just wanted to say, I mean, you know, ngā mihi, what beautiful words. And I was going to ask something very similar to Armajid, so I'm not going to ask any questions, but I have written so much down. And the thing that's come across most is connection, which is, yeah, and it's exactly in many ways what we are doing for each other here in this forum as well, to make it possible to be able to say, actually, I am amber or I am red, and can I have some help? And thank you also for the beginning and the end cycle of life reminder. And what this does mean is that if you think it's the end now, you're going to have to come and do another beginning for us another day.
Okay. Kia ora. So just want to thank you on behalf of all of us for coming and giving us your time. You know, sometimes people come into your life for just maybe an hour and change you dramatically on the inside. And I really do think that we have been given a gift, a tonga today, and very, very, very grateful that you could speak with us and share your experiences and give us some tools for our kitties, because I for one have learned a lot just by listening to you today. So we're very grateful. I know you have another kaupapa to go to, so you won't be staying till the end of our meeting, but thank you. And I hope we get to have you again, because I feel very enriched and blessed. So korotangi and ngā mihi.
Can I just say, Korotangi, we have a Collaborative Aotearoa has their conference on the 29th and 30th of August in Wellington. And so, yeah, we may, we're just pulling the program together at the moment, but I think your wisdom and what you've shared this morning would help so many others. So we, via Carol, we'll get in touch, and for our other people on the on the call. Leanna is going to be sending details out in terms of if she hasn't already, in terms of save the date for that. But yeah, we'd love to explore an opportunity around that, because yeah, such tonga as Carol says. So thank you, ngā mihi.
Ka ki tēnō whanau mā.
Kia pai.
Kia pai tō rā, Korotangi.
Tēnā koe tā.
Hei kona.
Ka kite. Whew. Okay, Mel.
Okie dokie. Shall I take us back into our slides? Jazz, I'm going to just stop sharing just for a minute so that you can, introduce your little piece. And then I've got some of your slides. So shall I just show them once you've started?
I just wonder in I guess kapua noa, because I guess we've talked about a very heavy subject, and I just feel I just need a few minutes to just walk away, get myself a drink, do a little ritual for myself. Is that okay if we just take 5 minutes, whanau?
That is a great idea. Thank you for suggesting it, and we'll see everybody back. It's now 11 o'clock, so 11:05.
11:05 is great. Thank you.
Thanks. Hey, Jazz, I'm back.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm okay. You've got a drink.
Yeah, I have.
Is it warm and getting warm and cold where
It
you are?
was really humid and now it's cooling down. Changeable. It's Northland.
Yeah.
Kia ora.
Wait a little bit longer.
Jazz, would you want me to use your slides when you go into your thing, or do you just want to talk?
I'll talk first, and then I'll
You just tell me.
the slides are more prompts really. So welcome everyone. I hope you've all managed to grab a little drink or stretch your legs and go for a toilet break. That was a really what's the word? It's a really lovely talk from Korotangi, and yeah, it just triggered some things for me. But it's timely that I am talking to you all about, I guess, self-care, because the question you asked, Amajit, is so crucial about, we all kind of engaged, whether it's professionally or personally, we're engaged in supporting people that we love and care about through stress, trauma, suicide, unexpected events that occur. And so I offered to talk to people about taking care of yourself, and how that actually to be good enough for anybody else, we need to make sure we fill our own cup first. And so what I really just share a little bit about my background. So I did trained as a psychologist, and then I went on to social work, and then later on I went on and I've become a yin yoga teacher. And so I've learnt through that time a number of different techniques that I have added to my kitty, that have enabled me in the different roles that I've undertaken. Like Korotangi, I did a role for a number of years where I was a Sudi liaison, where I'd work with families immediately after they had lost a baby, usually under 12 months, to sudden death, and they just had no idea. So while they're still coming to terms with the joy of this new life, and then to lose it so suddenly, and through that time, I learned a number of techniques. A little while after that, I was involved in doing, for about 5 years, I was involved with a group that did child and youth death reviews for the Hutt Valley and Capital and Coast DHBs when we did have them. And we would review the deaths of young people aged from 0 right up to 24 years. And I think those committees still exist. And we did have a number of professionals that were involved, as well as your standard, your police, ambulance, medical services. We had a lot of other organisations, as well as ambulance as well, and general practice were at the table as well, because they had a lot of information on sometimes on these deaths that nobody else had in history. And often those reviews would be done in a way to understand what are the lessons that we can learn from those deaths, and what are the changes that we can make. So the question that I asked Korotangi was around the processes. The processes have been the way they are for a long time, and that they do re-traumatize people unnecessarily. But we as people that are members of a community and through our work can actually bring the humanness to those processes, I think. And I have a lot of admiration for Korotangi and his colleagues around the country who are doing the mahi that they're doing, as I think it is so crucial to have people that are standing beside families and whānau and walking with them and being there to enable them to stand upright. I mean, literally, he is talking about the weight and the burden that people carry. The whakamā is for suicide is so great. So yeah, But death meets us all, trauma meets us all, stress meets us all. And so even in a busy day, yeah, grief can touch us all in lots of different ways. It could be grief of a lost opportunity. It could be, as well as a grief of a life, a grief of something goes wrong with somebody because you maybe could have done something differently. And so we can often you can term grief up and stress up in lots of different ways. But I just go back to that, in order for us to respond in the best way that we can, and from a place that's really is truly from our hearts, we just need to make sure that we do fill our cups, and we are working at in a place where we're not taking things personally and we're not burnt out. And I think certainly my years of been doing social work, I saw lots and lots of people becoming burnt out, just overwhelmed with the burden of need in the community. And so many people just wanted to do good. A lot of people choose health professionals and choose to work in the health sector because they want to do good. And I think in doing so, sometimes we give. And even women, as mothers, as nurturers, we naturally give more than we actually take. And so this time that I have with you, I really would like you all to take some time today to yourself, and give that time to yourself and that attention to yourself. So I'm going to give you some strategies and some techniques that I've learned through my time. And one of the best ones is just pausing. And there is an initiative that Southern Cross is now doing in primary schools, and it's just called Pause, Breathe, and Smile. And they are just 3 simple words. So any of us can kind of take a few minutes, grab a drink, and just pause and breathe and take a deep breath in. You can do it now. Let that breath go and give yourself a smile. That takes less than 30 seconds. If you can do it for longer, it's even better. It just gets better as you continue. But it's just 3 simple words: just pause, break, and smile. And I find in situations where I'm challenged, somebody might come up with something that might feel hurtful, or they're needing something from me that I'm not ready to give. And I have a choice. I can react, snap at them back, but that doesn't help the situation. Or I could say something that I regret later on. But if we imagine the cycles of, beginnings and endings, as Korotangi talked, each beginning, each ending is a beginning. And it's the same with our cycles of breath. We breathe in, the out breath always comes, it always follows, it's a given. Morning, night, it always follows. In the same way, you receive an experience, you're faced with a situation. You can react immediately, or you can just pause briefly and just think about how is the best way to respond to improve the situation, so you're not adding fuel to the fire. And it's the same if somebody is demanding things from you, demanding your time when you've got lists of tasks, of things to do. It's just maybe taking a pause and saying that I'm just need a couple of minutes, just need to go and do something. Or when work is feeling overwhelming, is saying, I will get to that, but I've just got to do this other stuff, and taking your time. It's often when we are reacting and we're working too fast that we can sometimes fall over and sometimes make errors as well. And our judgment isn't always clear. It's the same if you're all drivers at an intersection. You have a moment to pause, or you could just go. And if you go, if you go at the wrong time, the impact could be devastating, not just for you, for many others. And so it's thinking about just pausing and breathing, and really kind of making the most of those moments. So Mel, with my slides, I pulled up the 5 ways of well-being from the Mental Health Foundation, which I'm sure you are all familiar with in health. That's just a slide. I'll just talk through this one. Sorry, just before Mel. Just so when you're faced with a situation and experience, something happens to you. This is just CBT stuff from psychology, really. Something happens, and then you create a thought. The thought comes before what you feel, and then you behave or you act. So this happens really quickly. And so what I really encourage people to think about is the time between the situation and the emotion and the reaction that you take is making that time. Oh, sorry, I just had an unknown participant joining, so welcome, whoever that is.
Welcome. Yes, sorry, I'll carry. I'll just switch.
Cool. So it's about when you're in the situation, just taking that pause, noticing the thoughts, noticing the feelings, and then responding. And so if you're finding that you're behaving in a particular way that is unlike you, just as Korotangi was saying, your support network will notice first, your children will notice first, is listen to that and notice and go back to what was the situation that created that, and what is it about how I'm interpreting that situation that is triggering certain thoughts and certain feelings for me that I might need to change. Remember these are all things that are within you. They are within you to change. What you think, what you feel, and how you act are things for you to change. The things on the outside, the situations you encounter are not for you to change. They will come. But certainly the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that you have at your in your kitty, other things that you can change. So Mel, sorry, so the next slide. So I just wanted to kind of just put that up around kind of thinking about behavior change. So these are the 5 ways of well-being from the Mental Health Foundation. I think every year when we have a mental health week, this comes out across all the desks. You can get bookmarks, you can get little things, little stickers that you put on your desk. And I know certain organisations will take a theme of the day and they'll focus on one, because these are 5 tasks to do each day. So most people are familiar with this. Just give me a nod if you've seen it. You've seen this before. Yeah, I think it is quite common in health. And if we go to the next slide, because I think it's all really pretty and it's really good, but this was more around, I thought, okay, well, what is this? How can we kind of do these things? And you would know all this, as I'm not telling you something that you don't know, but I think sometimes we can just get so bogged down and so busy in work and busy in our lives that we forget. So this is really just a reminder that these are tools that you do have in your kitty that you can pull out. So the first one is connecting. So we as humans, we crave people, we crave connection, and we're now on this kind of virtual world as well as this personal world as well. And so one of the things I would encourage you and remind you to do is connecting with the people around you, whether they're your family, your friends, your colleagues, people in your community, people you work alongside, or even strangers. I love going when I'm in stores and, people just normally say, how you doing? And usually in a store, you walk into a store, someone approaches you, can I help you? And I pause for a moment and I ask, how are you going? Have you been busy today? And we just make a connection. And I just see that people just relax, and I just really get a lot from making connections. Even reaching out to people that you haven't connected with in a while, if there are friends that for different reasons they may be struggling, and sometimes just even sending a text or something, or making a phone call, sending an email, is just reaching out to people that you maybe have lost touch with. During COVID, we just were so good at connecting the army of 5, or the team of 5 million that we were called. We really made some amazing connections with people that were close, that lived close to us. And I know lots of people really thrived in that space. So yeah, so I encourage you all to connect. The second one is really kind of around pushing yourself to be curious and trying out new things, and this is about kind of finding some excitement in your life to stimulate you, rediscovering an old interest, or it might be an interest that you've maybe packed for a little while. During COVID, thinking about that time, I discovered that I love baking. And so I've forgotten that because now we've got busy in lives and stuff. So go back to some of those things that where you had time, that you were enabled to actually pursue some of those interests, and you might have discovered some new things. I've put there even about taking new responsibility at work, branching out, trying new things. I know we all stay in our lanes and we focus on certain things because that's on our job description and they're the tasks on our list. But wouldn't it be great to just offer to do, an hour on a front desk for somebody, and just putting yourself in somebody else's shoes? You may be surprised at what you might discover about yourself, and that's also about, it could even be an act of kindness, and that's another one about gifting that time, a break to somebody else. The other one there is about just being active, moving your body. Just after that kōrero, I just needed to move. I needed to stand up. I felt I just needed to, just shift my body. I love walking. I'm not a great runner. I used to be, but walking, just being out in nature, and playing. I have children that kind of really help me with that. But I'm sure there'd be lots of people that you can connect with. I often do walking meetings as well, so thinking about fitting these into your workday. I haven't done them in this role, but certainly in previous roles, we used to do quite regular. When I used to have one-on-ones with people, we'd go walking. We would walk to a coffee shop and walk back, but that just being outside would be just help in my well-being. I've put there about carrying out acts of kindness, just doing something random and nice, just turning up with a cake for someone, thanking someone. If someone has done something to you and you think about them, sending them a message or ringing them up can go a long way. Volunteering your time, as I said, you could do a couple of these together, is just giving up something for yourself, whether it's your time or something that you have that could be received and gifted to somebody else. Even giving a listening ear to somebody and saying, I've noticed something, or you're not yourself, how are you going? Just giving some time to others is it's really good for us. And the last one's really that, going back to that pause, breathe and smile, is really coming into the present moment and focusing on your thoughts, your actions and your feelings, and even the world around you, noticing. Often when I go out in nature, I notice some new leaves on the tree. I notice it's grown. I notice a few more weeds in my garden and those kinds of things. But nature is so good because it's always changing, and it just reminds me that life is always changing. What I feel right now will change. If I'm feeling overwhelmed, or if I'm feeling pain, or if I'm feeling sadness now, it will pass. I know it will pass. In the same way as the joy and happiness that I'm feeling, and this beautiful connection with you all that I'm feeling, I know it will pass. So I'm savoring it. So I'd really encourage you all to really just savor as much as you can in your day, and staying in the present moment, not jumping ahead of all the things that you have to do. You will get to them. They will get done. And I think I can't remember what I've got on the next slide. Mel, is that the last one? You're on mute, sorry.
That was your last slide.
That was my last slide. Cool. Yeah, I just wanted to keep it short and sweet. But what I'd really like to hear is, because I've kind of been doing a bit of talking, are those things that people do, and what are the strategies that you have that you want to share with others? What works for you in your busy day, in your busy lives? Who wants to go first?
I'll jump in just briefly. Yeah, I agree with you when it comes to getting outside and getting in nature. I know that for my own mental health, like even if it is just pulling myself away from the work, if I'm in the office and getting outside and getting some fresh air and just getting a different visual perspective can often help for me to come back, maybe be in a better mood and take a different perspective. But for example, why I said I was feeling green today is because I actually got up and took the time to take the dog out for a walk, which isn't something that I necessarily allow myself to do first thing in the morning because I'm trying to rush to sit down at my computer. And it's like, actually, I do a lot of work and I can take the time out while I'm working from home to do something that I know will help me to start my day. So it's something that's really simple, but yeah, I think for me, it's definitely getting out and having those moments, even if it is brief, or those longer periods of time to actually get out and go for a walk. And yeah.
Thanks, Amelia. And you're so right. There is science that proves that when you take breaks, when you step away, you are more creative, you are more productive. So when you've got tasks to do, and even going meeting to meeting to meeting, that's not healthy. You are not at your best. It's important to take breaks. So, limiting those minutes, that if you've got an hour on meetings, I mean, clinic appointments are a great example, is it's really important to even just for a few minutes to just pause before you start on the next. So those endings and beginnings are really crucial to step back, because you will be better when you begin. Amajit, you've got your hand up.
Yes, I didn't know if Mel was first. Did Mel? No, you're good. Okay. Gosh, you can see how lucky we are to have Jazz, and it keeps us grounded. And I just wanted to share a little short story and then another little snippet of some of the thinking that's going on within Collaborative. But the other week, Jazz and I met early one morning in the hut at a cafe, and before Jazz arrived, had done about 2 phone calls, various emails, just bang, 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 bang. And then by the time she got there, and I'd probably had an extra coffee that I shouldn't have had, and we were going to a hui together, and I was like, oh, I'm feeling a little bit kind of, dizzy almost. And, I said, I'm just not feeling, kind of great. And she just walked me through these breathing exercises and then just grounded me. And then followed up with me and sort of said, even in the excitement of all of our great mahi and connecting with great people, that can be overwhelming in itself because we put our whole self into this. And so, yeah, it was exactly that. I just thought, wow, I want to do everything and I want to do it now. And then it just became quite, yeah, it was an interesting experience. But then to do that breathing and then just really ground, went into the other hui, and it was great, And then I just remembered that I must walk the dog more often as well and just get out there instead of going straight to the computer and straight to the phone calls, because we won't be as productive, and when we sort of miss that out. But one thing I just want, it's kind of related in some ways, because I think what gives us off, grounds us in our well-being is the and for the work we all do, which is, as you say, it can be, and the closer you are to the front line, like some of you guys, more than certainly what I do, that sort of feeling of, gosh, we've got a big job here, and that in itself, as I say, becomes overwhelming. But holding on to that hope, and I read this article, and I will share it. I'll send it to Mel. Hope for Health Equity, and it's basically just really grounding us in the whole, having that hope and optimism and making those small changes, keeping ourselves well, but that whole future outlook of that we will make positive change. But sometimes in amongst it, you can probably not fully lose hope, but get a little bit sort of going, oh gosh, we're still in the same position, But yeah, I'll send the article. I'm trying to dig it out, but I just remember reading it and thinking, oh gosh, that's really on the money. And the Tamarack Institute, who will come over from Canada as one of our keynotes, they've been working with communities on a hope index. So, you know, just a real tool around you know, for people to support their own well-being. So sorry, I'm just weaving that one in because I think it's related, and Jazz always talks about that, you know, because she's ever the optimist, you know, and I think we benefit from that too. So now Mihi.
Thanks, Amajit. Now you've got your hand up.
Thank you, and thank you, Jazz, for, you know, you have enacted exactly that aroha for me. I think recorded on a video, but yes, our team walks the walk. What I was thinking about, and I thought it's worth just acknowledging, or you know, thinking about the practical application of these ideas in general practice and how important they are. And general practice is on a 15-minute appointment treadmill. And in a high needs practice, that can be really hard work. And indeed, there can be difficult things, you know, and I remember well, sudden deaths or suicides, or, you know, the whole team take it personally and take it to heart and hold on to it for many days. And some really simple things like when GPs and nurses and other members of the workforce in a general practice have a break, making that a space that people don't interrupt them, that they don't carry on talking at work in the tea room, that we agree that that is just 15 minutes of thanks. And I can think of several GPs and or other hips and health coaches who would encourage people to walk and or do breathing in the morning. You know, I think all of those things go a long way. And I also saw social workers and or mental health workers, if other clinicians knew they were there and had been given full permission to go and seek their support if they needed it, that was really important. So they might, I can think of a couple of registrars who had quite difficult consults, and they didn't have to ask permission. They didn't tell anybody. It didn't have to be written down. They could just go and speak to the right person and go, you know what, I just need 10 minutes. So, you know, really helpful things to apply in general practice to support everyone.
Yeah, great, Mel. That's really, really good ideas and suggestions, I think. And that's, I think we're in a place now. When I came into social work 30 years ago, there was all this, you had to be professional, you had to have this professional front, you couldn't be vulnerable. But I feel like now we're actually, we're in a permissive space now where people are actually looking after each other, and and it is okay to ask for help. So yeah, lovely.
Morena, thank you, Jazz, for that. So I just was thinking about just that whole environment in the workspace, and I guess it is around the kind of the concept of work from home. You know, that the old you know, like the Mondayitis kind of isn't there as much as what it used to be. And look, there's pros and cons to working from home. There's all of those things, but actually, if you get a good balance, and if it's you know, like it's checked in regularly, it can be a nice start to a week, as opposed to, uh-oh, here we go again, walk into the clinic or walk into whatever environment, and it's just, you know, like you go the whole time. And in this way, it, you know, like, and I guess, I mean, I'm talking in my own circumstances, it's quite nice, you know, like Monday's not as stressful and difficult and hard and as what it has been traditionally. You know, there's a little bit of a different pace. I need to be mindful. So part of that is I need to make sure that, yeah, because there's times, right, where you get on the computer and you're there from 7 o'clock and then it's 11 o'clock and you haven't even had a, you know, like you have to race to the wharipaku, and it's like, you know, but, you know, because you're so, but I mean, part of that comes with, you know, like you get a lot done too. So I mean, there's some self-satisfaction and all of that. Again, just it's that kind of checking in and making sure that you know, like we can get up at 10:30 and take the dog for a walk, as opposed to, you know, we have to race off at 6 in the morning, and this way it's a little bit different because you've started earlier. And then, and so the other thing is, you know, like it's making sure, and I like that whole pause, breathe, and smile. You know, like, I mean, even that, you know, that was just nice, because I mean, I do box breathing, and it's probably a similar thing, but
I was going to say, I could spend a whole day teaching you breathing techniques.
Yes.
But that
Yeah.
was just a simple one. Box breathing is a good one too.
Yeah. And then I also like the mention of putting yourself in their shoes. And so, again, it comes back to that kind of real nuts and bolts and grassroots of it all, having an understanding of what's happening really on that front line. And yeah, maybe you do jump in and find out, you know, like or you get re-traumatized as to, you know, those phones going all the time. But, you know, it's good to be in it because then you have a good understanding of it. You can step back and then, you know, then you have an understanding of those people that are on the front line and what supports it, you know, like, so when they come up with, you know, issues or that you have an understanding and then kind of start working on what kind of solutions there are available.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Lovey. Anyone else do yoga? Oh, a few nods. Box breathing we do in yoga. It's where you imagine a box where you breathe in for a count of usually 4, and then you pause for a count of 4, then you breathe out for a count of 4, then you pause again for a 4. So imagine you're creating like a box. It's a really good exercise to do. And you only have to do it for about 6-7 rounds of breath, and that's enough. But it does really center you and ground you. Those that have done yoga will probably have done it before. But any other tips from others that's worked, anything that's worked for other people that you want to share? Chocolate's a good thing as well. Often take a break and have some chocolate, dark chocolate.
Korotangi clearly had a great sense of humor, and a great sense of humor goes a long way.
Definitely.
There's
Being
also,
I
just want to mention, sometimes we as Māori, we get a bit of a hard time because we seem to be eating all the time at hui and stuff like that, which we do anyway, actually. I mean, nothing better than a good feed. But
I'd say Indians get the same as well.
But actually, and I didn't understand the concept of whakakapi. So, you know, pōwhiri, whai kōrero, whakawhanaunatanga, and then having the kapu tea afterwards. And the cup of tea isn't just to have a feed because, you know, like you can go anywhere to have a feed, but it's actually the kōrero that you're having when you're having a cup of tea. So it's like, oh, what do you do? And, oh, right, oh, I haven't seen you in ages. And so you're having a kai. And so that's that kind of like that soul stuff. And it's like, you know, yes, you've done the formal, you know, introductions and you've found out what iwi they've come from. But now it's really, you know, oh, so, you know, you've got twins, or you've got, you know, like, or your nanny is here, or, you know, all of that. And so you're having a kai and you're meeting them and you're just, you know, like you're really building that relationship. So I think that's really neat stuff because, you know, next time you come together, it's like, oh, are your children, are they like 10 now? It's like, were they just this high? And so all of that is just, you know, it really builds on it. It's like, oh, you remember that I had kids. I mean, you know, so all of that is just really enriching to build that relationship.
Lovely. I'm just going to add to that. So culturally, we as Indians, if you came to my home, I would always be feeding you. My mum would be feeding people when you came. Mum would not let you leave the house unless you had something to eat. And I've learned, and when I've spoken to my mum before she passed, that the reason why we do that and culturally is actually when you eat food and you put food into your body, you're bringing your body to the interaction. You're bringing your whole self, because we can bring our minds and our thoughts and our mouth to talk. But actually, when you're ingesting something, drinking or eating, you're bringing your body because your body is receiving and giving. So that's how I think about it. So even after pōwhiri, you have your speeches and then you go and have a cup of tea, you have some kai. That is then you've arrived, you have truly arrived, and you've been truly welcomed.
Oh, ngā mihi, thank you.
If no more questions, Thank you, Jazz, so much. That was a perfect follow-on and really practical as well. So thank you very much. I'm just going to, I've got one last slide and then I'm going to let Carol close unless anybody, has anything more they want to have a chat about. This slide seems to have lost its heading. There we go. We have a few little updates just to mention. So we put out a telehealth survey via PHOs to go to general practice, and I think some of you or maybe all of you have passed that on. We have had about 145 responses, which is quite encouraging, but it is still open. Maybe what we'll do is when we send our next email communication to you, we'll give you a few words and send the link so that you can remind general practice to complete that survey. Probably in the next peer group meeting, we'll share some of our results. It's super interesting around uptake of digital platforms in general practice. So just a reminder. We also have the engagement hub, and I think Leanna might be sending out links for that. And over time, we are now starting to build material on there. And one of the things that will be on there, and I've just listed the dates here, is that we talked to a number of you around the Wananga idea. Got a sense of what's out there. And one of the things, there seemed to be quite a lot of appetite for an online series for general practice of sort of 45-minute online meetings that talked about some of the basics. So it's sort of restating the healthcare home and lean basics. And then also for more mature practices, working on proactive, preventative, ho ora, comprehensive care, and of course, digital platforms. And we will also do a 45-minute session on collective action. And these will be 10 to 10:45. I think it's a Thursday morning, the dates that we've got here, or a Wednesday. I'd have to double check. So the idea is that this will be for general practice in kind of that short bite-sized chunk that people in general practice can actually schedule in their templates, maybe sit in a room together and, have a listen. And then if PHOs from there wanted to still do some in-person or more, we can absolutely build on that. So that was all I wanted to do at this stage. And other than that, I'll just let us see if there's anybody who wants to say anything else before we close, and I'll let Carol do the closing. Rebecca.
Kia ora, just a wee question on the wānanga, because it is on a specific day at a specific time and may not necessarily be useful to everybody in general practice or some key people, will that be recorded and put in on the site? Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Nothing else. Shall I give you your final slide, Carol? Here we go.
Okay. Thank you all so much for joining us today. It's been very enriching, and thank you, Jazz. That was wonderful. It really worked well together, going from the very deep kōrero to self-care. So thank you. Okay. He karakia whakamutunga. Ko rangi nui e tunei. Ko papa tuanuku e takoto nei. Kia tau te rangi Māori, ki runga I tau tātou mahitahi, haumie huie taiki. Kia ora. Thank you so much, team. That's been a wonderful morning. Bless you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Carol. Thanks, Mel.
Thanks so much. Ka kite.
Ka kite.
Ka kite.
Ah.
Well done.
Awesome session. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
really
Carol obviously just pulled, I'll stop recording. I must remember to do this. Stop recording.